what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast, episode 67 with Charlie and Justin. We are coming at you live in this early Saturday morning. We are here before the sun rises, which is pretty typical for both of us. I told someone the other day, I said, I don't even know what daylight is like now, especially in the winter where it's limited because you and I are both awake and out of the house before the sun comes up, and we are both still out before the sun goes down. Long before each of those happens. So I see a lot of darkness.
Lots of darkness. You know, that's a product of the oil field for me. I've been doing it for longer than my fitness thing, you know, because it's like I work day shift, but in the wintertime, it's like, man, you go to work and it's dark. You come home and it's dark. I don't even know what to do anymore.
But, and then on top of that, like, for me too, it's like that on the weekends, just because, you know, like I was thinking about that, how people like hope for the weekends, and we always say that that's kind of a bad mentality to have. If you're living and surviving just to get to that 2-day span where you're wasting, 5 out of your 7 days mentally because you're not focused on doing the things you need to do or improving how you need to improve. And I realize that I actually probably do more work on the weekends, which I shouldn't say more work because I don't think that's possible, but equally as much work on the weekends as I do on the weekdays. So it's not like I get any rest benefit from having a weekend.
Right, no.
It's just like, it's a change of pace because it means no school, but those school hours are filled with, like right now, like wrestling events or more training or recording podcasts or doing like on Saturdays, I'll make some of my appointments like a chiropractor's appointment or a work session, with my media team or whatever. Like there's always something that I'm doing that replaces it. Like it's not like there's, free time per se.
Right. I don't have scheduled free time anymore.
Yeah. And you and I actually talked about that before we started recording, how right now with both of our busy schedules, which we, always have this conversation about time management, and maybe that's something we need to start doing. I can't speak for you, but maybe it's something that I need to try to account for or create buffers on is free time. Not necessarily free time, but time that may potentially be lost. Because with you and I, what I do is I mark everything and I time out my day perfectly where my clients, even like my clients at the gym, overlap essentially. So when one is finishing up, the other is starting their warm-up not under my guidance because they know how to warm up. Like I have, like with my athletes, I have a specific warm up that they have to do, like a bunch of mobility drills and stuff. And then with my Gen Pop clients, just my normal people that come to the gym for like weight loss or strength gain or physique changes or whatever, they have like particular warm ups that they do that are pretty individualized for them. So they're doing their warm up while I'm finishing up with my next client. So then as soon as I'm done with that client, the other one is warmed and ready to go. So I don't have to wait for them to warm up. So I have like no overlap time with my scheduling. So like you said, if we have a conversation with someone at the gym that takes a little bit longer than you anticipate, or you end up running into somebody at the store while you're grocery shopping and you sit to chat with them for a moment, like I don't create time buffers or like spaces in between things that I have to do to account for stuff like that. And then it throws me behind. And I tell people all the time, I had this conversation yesterday, that for being someone who's so keen on punctuality, I run late often. And it's because I don't allow myself those buffer times. And I think like maybe I should just like create 10 minutes in between things and give myself some time, because like if I have an appointment after school, I calculate exactly how much time it takes me to get from the school to the appointment place, and maybe give myself 30 seconds to get into my car and out of my car once I leave and once I arrive respectively. And that's it. Like I don't account for, I might run into traffic, or, my principal may catch me leaving school and want to chat about something real fast. And then inevitably it's like a domino effect. Like if I get behind on one thing for the day, get behind on everything.
Yeah. I mean, you could like domino that, like with that, like, so you get behind on one thing. So now you're running 5 minutes behind schedule to get to your appointment. So you're either going to be 5 minutes later, you have to speed. So you choose speed so you're not late, and then you get pulled over in the next little town, and now you're 35 minutes late because officer wants to have a conversation because he's seen that you trained his niece or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, so, I know what you mean. Like planning that, I like that buffer
And I
time
get
frame.
part of it with me is I get so honed in on my schedule that when it's thrown off, I have a very, very difficult time coping mentally. And it sounds ridiculous, but like I should not let those things stress me out and bother me, but it does. And then it like ruins my day mentally when I'm off because well I'm supposed to do this at this time, and you almost get like the way that I can create an analogy for people is it's like a logbook because they're very similar. You know, you keep track and I keep track of our weights and our training sessions in a logbook where we're always trying to do better than the previous week. So this is what I did this week. I'm going to try to do a little bit more. Even if it's one rep on one exercise for the whole week, I got a little bit better this week than I was last week.
Right.
One of the problems with adhering strictly to a logbook is it doesn't account for biofeedback, it doesn't account for stress, it doesn't account for lack of sleep, it doesn't account for missed meals or underhydration or whatever.
Right.
Where you go into a training session not in an optimal situation as last week, so you're not going to perform as much. But then you force yourself to try to hit these numbers and hit these performance markers that your body's not ready for, and that's how sometimes people get hurt or their technique breaks down or whatever. So you can create the perfect plan on paper to go up, but if you're not ready at that particular time with the things that life throws at you, you have to be able to understand when to like ignore the logbook and say,
Right.
hey, I'm not going to be able to do 400 for a set of 10 like I did last week. I'm going to have to taper this down because I didn't sleep well last night.
Yeah.
Or I missed one of my meals, or I didn't drink as much water as I should have, so I'm not well hydrated, or I have a lot of external stress that I can't get out of my head right now, or whatever. So like it's kind of the same way with my time management. Is like I called it my Bible the other day because I have this date book that I write all of my trainings in. Like I write everything in there, like that I have to do down to like the minute. And if I lose it, I am so off schedule. Like I had the other day, I left it at school.
Oh.
And it was like I had to like call a bunch of clients to figure out who was at what time and what time I wrote them down because it is a week to week thing, especially
Right.
with my athletes because they're in different sports and changing seasons and stuff. So I was like lost, and it made me realize how dependent I am on that. And it's just nuts because like, well, I can say certainly this, that we talk about time management and you and I definitely practice what we preach.
Yes.
Like, because
Have to.
almost to a point where for me, I can say it's a fault where I am not a spontaneous person at all.
Mhm.
I have a lot of anxiety about spontaneity and doing things sporadically like some people. Like if someone was to come up to me and say, hey, you know, let's go to Pittsburgh for a couple hours and do some, I couldn't do it.
No. Me
Like
neither.
it would be like, even if I don't have anything to do, I feel like I can't just have stuff thrown on me like that.
Right.
Like I say this all the time, like when I leave town, I have this like unrelenting urge to go back home, even if I don't have anything to do.
Right.
Like even if I have no clients, which is never the case, or I don't have any email updates to do, which is also never the case, or like it just hypothetically, if I was to have nothing to do, I would still create like a ball of anxiety inside me thinking I need to get back because this visit or this trip wasn't as planned as I needed it to be.
Right. No
And
doubt.
I definitely need to work myself out of that because it creates this mentality where I just like, it's almost like I elicit so much stress in myself that I don't need.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like a fine line, right? And this is what I found, anyways, is because I don't have a whole lot of time planned to do just nothing.
Yeah.
I do a little bit because, especially now having a newborn, like you're not in charge as much as I was, you know.
And maybe that's what I need. Maybe I need
You need
something.
a newborn? You can borrow her for a couple days.
I don't know about that. But maybe I need something in my life that forces me into being uncomfortable, like we talk about all the time, because I don't regularly put myself time management wise in a situation where I'm uncomfortable. It's like when you have a newborn, you have no choice but
Right.
to be on call. And then like take firefighting, for example. That's another thing that has probably completely changed your paradigm of thinking.
Yeah.
Because being so regimented, you know, working as a volunteer firefighter, you can't
Right. You
be
can't.
structured and scheduled to the degree that you want to be, because
Right.
the tones drop and you
go.
got to go.
It's just what it is. So what I was, but like to finish that thought was, I I focused really heavily on like pulling from successful people, right? And trying to decide how to do this because I was the same way. Like I couldn't figure out how do I go through every day and schedule everything out and then deal with if there's an issue with the schedule, with the plan. And the thing that stood out the most to me was like there's a clip from a podcast of Jocko Willink and he's talking about good, right? Like the word good can be used for everything in this clip. I probably had to link it to this because it's an excellent way for me to explain it. But basically, like no matter what happens, as long as you're sticking to your plan, something goes wrong, something goes awry, good because now I get to get better. Like I get to improve, and that's the way I look at it. So like we make our plans, try to make them bulletproof. We try to make them concrete, but inevitably something's going to happen. Somebody's going to run into you at the gym. Somebody, you're like you said, you're going to run into an old friend at the Walmart or whatever, or maybe your previous client runs over at the gym. You get pulled over on the way to go to your chiropractor appointment. Your schedule's gonna be thrown off. Good. Now tomorrow I get to try to make my schedule perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just how I did it because otherwise, like I was the same way. Like, dude, it was just constantly spinning my head. It was always going cranking 100 miles an hour. But I don't schedule time to decompress that.
The ironic part with me is the things that you think on surface value would cause the most amount of issues if I get behind. For example, clients.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I get behind on one client, I got a string of them,
right,
every hour and a half, because my training sessions are anywhere from an hour and 15 to an hour and a half with each client. So you're looking at like 3 o'clock, 4:30, 6 o'clock, 7:30. It's like they're just coming.
right.
They're scheduled the whole way through. Those things that you would think me getting pushed back would cause rifts, it doesn't. It's usually pretty good because my clients are flexible. Like if I have to say to someone, "Hey, I know we plan for 3:30," and I let them know a couple hours in advance. I'm not going to spring it on them last minute. "Hey, I know we plan for 3:30, but I'm not going to be back in town. It's going to take me a little bit longer than expected. Would you mind coming at 4:30 or whatever?" Like I don't have any issues there. The
Right.
things that, ironically enough, I have issues are things that I shouldn't have issues with, like just my perception of being off on time. Because then I feel like I let the client down because I had to change time on him, and it makes me feel unprofessional that I had to do that. And then there's like all this this big long slew of thoughts that I have in my head where I create. I mean, how many times do we say this with thing? I create the situation and I make the situation to be worse than it is.
No doubt. Yeah, I get it.
It's strange.
So I don't have like that. Your schedule is really blocky, right?
Yeah.
You have like 40 things in one day.
Yeah.
My schedule, my time management issue is I have unpredictable time blocks to fit in to a predictable time block.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's 24 hours in a day, period. That's something that's a fact, right? But I can work anywhere between 10 and 14 or 16 hours every day. I can, like you said, with the fire department, at 1 o'clock in the morning, the tones can go off. That's a time that I always have blocked out for sleep. So it's just not predictable time frames. And then, so now, like with training in the evening at the fire station, I am down to like 2 hours before we lift telling everybody what time.
Yeah.
Because that's about the earliest that I know when I'm getting off of work.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to have my pre-workout meal before I go to work, go to the gym. So it's like
a lot of what I do in coaching, specifically like not sports coaching, but like my online coaching. A lot of what I do is help people sift through time management when it comes to unpredictable jobs.
Yeah.
Like I see that all the time. Like people who have like one of my clients and one of my newer training partners, he works for the city, and he like is part of the road crew. So like he goes and like salts roads and
Mm-hmm.
plows roads when it snows. So he normally would be like 8 to 4, but then sometimes he works midnights. Well, he has no idea until the shift before, the day before, if he's going to work midnight that
Right.
night. And I always think we have like essentially we have like two meal plans,
Mm-hmm.
one for when he's working a normal day, and then if he gets called into a midnight shift, he switches his meal times to this time. So he's like two meal plans, very very similar, just the times are different.
Mm-hmm.
So I that's something that I encounter a lot, is helping people navigate that.
Right.
I personally, I would not have the mental fortitude to be able to do something where my shifts would change like that.
No way.
There's no way. Like for me, let's take training and coaching and everything external aside. My right now, what I would consider my career would be teaching.
Yeah.
That is 7:30 to 2:30 every day. No more, no less. Now, I create instances of more because I want to stay after in certain situations and do work, or I will come in the weekends and do work, or something like that. But if I want to be done, if I want to start exactly at 7:30, I can, and if I want to be done at 2:30, I can. So it's extremely predictable. You know what days you have off. You have weekends off. You have holidays off. You have summer off, which allows me the opportunity to do other things work related.
Right.
So it's nice. I could never do something like how you do, where it's when I get off, that's when I'll get off. I don't know what that is. I spent one summer before my trainings really picked up recently where I did work in the oil fields. And it was horrible for me mentally because people would say, "Wait, how long do you work today?" Or I said, "Could be 8 hours, could be 12 hours, could be 16 hours. We pulled 24-hour shifts
Yeah.
before." I said, "I literally have no idea what time. I could say any time between 8 hours and 24 hours, and I'll have no clue. It's going to be somewhere in there."
Right. I've done it for 8 years, so I've gotten used to it. But dude, I'd say the first 3 years was the hardest because like family, especially around the holidays or like birthdays and stuff, be like, "Hey, what time are you gonna be home for work next Thursday?" Dude, I don't know what time I'm gonna be home to work today.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, and people didn't understand that, and they would get mad, or or I would make the mistake back then and make a plan on Monday for Wednesday,
Mm-hmm.
and have all these elaborate plans laid out for when I get off of work on Wednesday, and then I'm stuck at work until 3 hours later.
Yeah.
And there have been numerous times where I'd have birthdays planned for like surprises, like meet up with people, and they'd be sitting at the table at the restaurant, and I'd still be in the truck.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. Now I've learned that I block out 14 hours in my day, and because they tell me the day before when I start, so when I make my plan for the next day, 14 hours, and then that's when my next event starts. So I do kind of have that buffer sometimes.
So you just kind of know at most it's going to take this, and if I get out earlier, then
Right.
that's considered a win for me time-wise.
Exactly. So like with what I'm doing now, so basically I start at 5 pretty much every morning. So I tell my crew for the gym, I tell them every day, like about noon, I send a message to our group and say it looks like 7 or 7:30 tonight, and then everybody just knows to show up before 7:30 because at 7:30 we're starting.
Yeah.
So, and then if I were to get off early, I would start individually messaging everybody, and if everybody collectively could go at this time, then we would go early.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, I just leave it alone because there's my extra free time to do dishes or whatever.
Yep. So you kind of have that buffer time built in, and for me,
Default.
I kind of am in a scenario right now where not only do I need to buffer that time in, or put that buffer time in, so that's on me, but I think that getting off track is my fault as well, and I think that I need to kind of foster a little bit of independence and shoulder a little bit of the burden here, and I feel like there's a way that I can make up for some of that lost time, but I want to ask you when we come back from a commercial break how to go about that, because I think it's one of those things for me that's difficult to navigate, and it could come across as very rude if you don't navigate that correctly. So let's go to a commercial break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
As listeners of the Chasing Dreams podcast, we know that you demand the highest quality at all times. If you're interested in quality, look no further than Beast Mode Baking. Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders need to be pre-ordered to ensure they're packed fresh and shipped out to you as soon as possible. Beast Mode Baking offers a flat rate of $15 for shipping due to the size and weight of the cookies and doughs. So if you're interested in Beast Mode Baking, please contact CEO Shannon Knorr. That's at SKNORR13 on Instagram and order your delicious baked goods today, because every time you support them, you're supporting the podcast as well.
And we are back from our commercial break. So, Justin, before we went to commercial, I said that I wanted to bring up something with you. And I felt like I needed to shoulder some of the responsibility, not just for planning in a little bit of extra time in between certain things to account for the items that life throws at you that you don't have the ability to control. So I don't want to get the entirety of my day thrown off and behind schedule because I didn't account for things that could throw off my times a little bit. Part of the other thing is, and I mentioned this to you before we started, I feel like I need to hold my time a little bit more sacred publicly. So one of the things we've talked about on a previous episode, and I know with me personally and you personally, it was kind of in the same domain, was we talked about how we take training, fitness, and health very seriously. So when you and I work out, people respect that. The instance that I referenced was when I'm in a contest prep. When I'm going through a diet where I'm preparing for a show, people are very respectful of everything that I have to invest in that. So when I'm at the gym, people typically don't bother me when they know I'm getting ready for a show. And they'll vocalize that. They'll say, oh, like, don't bother Charlie right now because he's getting ready for a show, so his workouts are even more important than they normally would be. Or we talked about going out to eat, where before people would say, hey, do you want to go out to eat? Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have time. Or, yeah, I should be able to fit that in, next week or whatever. Whereas when I'm on a prep, they know that I'm going to say no. And they know that this is very serious to me, so people don't even bother asking. Yeah, it's just a foregone conclusion that he's on a diet, he needs to stick to this diet. We're not going to ask him. So when you take something very seriously, other people take it very seriously too. That's right. And I thought to myself, and I've been thinking this way for a while, and some things have transpired lately where I thought that this is more crucial for me to kind of capitalize on now more than ever, because I have such a limit in time or in free time. How do you go about telling people that you don't have time to do casual things, not like scheduled things, but like if you run into somebody at Walmart, how do you tell someone very abruptly, I don't have time for this conversation. I appreciate you. I love you. It's great to see you, but I'm going to get thrown off of my times and I have things to do. I have clients waiting on me or emails or whatever, because there's something to be said with how important like sporadic interactions are, and like spontaneous like engagements with people are awesome and fulfilling and wonderful. But like, I feel like I need to shoulder the responsibility of being able to tell people, hey, I don't have time for this right now. I got to go. Because you and I are like that with each other, because we are on that same mental wavelength where we'll come in the car or in Studio A or wherever we would record and say on certain days, dude, I don't have time. We got to record this and then we got to dip out right away.
Yeah.
I'll say that. You'll say that. And you don't ask questions. You don't get offended. You just say, got it, buddy.
Yeah,
let's go. Done. Or we'll have a conversation and one of us, the one not talking, will interrupt the other one who is talking and say, hey, dude, sorry to cut you short. Got to go.
Yeah.
And then there's no, let me finish. Or it's just, all right, man, I'll see you. I'll call you later. Bye. Exactly. And then we just go. So there's comfort between you and I where I feel comfortable doing that with you.
Right.
When I go into the real world, so to speak, I don't feel comfortable cutting people off or telling people, no, I don't have time to take a look at your workout right now because I have other clients' workouts that I'm invested in that I have to really get to. Or, everybody has that, one last question person. Well, they just want to say one last question. And like for me, I'm one of those people where I can't I can't not answer, and I can't not answer thoroughly.
Right.
So like, I feel like I need to shoulder some responsibility here. And if I have a time schedule set, I need to show people that that's important so they respect that also. Because I think that people will be respectful of anything that you do again, going back to what we said earlier, if you take it seriously. If people see that my time management is very important to me, I think they're going to respect that and be okay with me cutting a particular conversation short because I got to attend to this right now.
Right. So I think there's a couple different answers, right?
Like everything.
Yeah. So, like, if you're at the grocery store and you run into a friend from high school, that was a while ago. If I ran into any of these friends, like we talked about on the podcast, people we lost touch with, if I run into somebody like that, I just do it.
Yeah. There are people in situations that are worth getting off track.
Exactly.
For
because,
sure.
like, I don't talk to Will, who lives in Oklahoma, very often. So if he's in town and I run into him, I'm probably going to fix my day later.
Yeah.
And that's just, it is what it is. So, but if I'm talking to somebody, like if I'm in the store and I run into somebody that I train with, or on the fire station, or, anything, work with, those people all know my schedule is very, very, very tight anyways. So, like, I don't feel some kind of way if I say, hey man, I gotta go. I'll shoot you a text later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think as long as you follow up with that second part, right? If you say, hey, I'll get with you later, or I'll call you tomorrow, or I'll text you tonight, just make sure you do that part.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I used to be the guy that says, I'll holler at you later, and then I ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Not trying to be the ghosting people, but it is what it is. Like, I would forget.
Yeah.
So now I just try to constantly remind myself, like, hey, dude, you said you were going to call so-and-so. And, it's 9:30 tonight. So let me message them and tell them, hey, I'll call you tomorrow.
And I think that you can make up for some ground there by doing things in a multitask type of way. So, like, for me, a good example, last Sunday I met with my web developer because he's getting, essentially, it's called the skeleton. Now, again, not a technologically savvy person,
Right.
at least compared to the software engineer that's putting together my website. But he's putting together like the skeleton, like the base outline. So he and I met in Pittsburgh area to kind of discuss and go over things. Well, that's an hour trip for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an hour there. We met for about an hour, a little bit longer, and then it's an hour back. So that's a 3-hour block on a Sunday of a Sunday that's already pretty packed.
Right.
Normally, one of my most important, if not the most important thing that I do on Sunday is set my schedule for the week, right, client-wise. So I contact, my dozens and dozens of gym clients and say, hey, what do we got this week? Are you still Tuesday, Thursday at 3 o'clock? Are you still Tuesday, Thursday at 4:30? Are you still Monday, right, Wednesday, Friday? So I'm getting everybody set, and then I'm filling in the missing pieces, like the kids that are in basketball season that don't necessarily have a set schedule because they have games on random days. Okay, what day am I fitting Austin in?
Right.
What day am I fitting Jared in? So I do that stuff on Sunday, and that takes me hours. I know it sounds silly, but when you're talking to that many people, waiting on response times for that many people, and then some of the people that you're scheduling are predicated on when others are going to be scheduled. Well, what do you have on Friday? Well, I'm not sure what I have on Friday because I haven't heard back yet today from so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. So that takes me a long time. So I meet with this web developer, and on my way out and on my way back, knowing that I'm not going to have several hours to sit down and do my schedule, I'm calling people. So I'm trying to multitask and call people on the phone and say, hey, Cheryl, when am I getting the girls in this week? Calling parents and stuff for my athletes, and just trying to set the schedule that way. So I feel like sometimes I can multitask my way through, but it's still really, really difficult.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I think that part of it, maybe it's just I need to take a little bit of, not necessarily like fortitude, but I need to have a little bit of umph when it comes to that stuff and tell people up front, this is how it's going to be. It would be like getting into a relationship. Like when you get into a relationship with someone, you always have to be very upfront and say, this is what you're getting into with me. This
right.
is what I do. This is what my schedule's like, or whatever. I feel like I need to just be very upfront with people and blunt with people when I talk to them and say, hey, this is what my schedule's like. I'm a very busy person. Because my thing is I never want to run the risk as coming off as insensitive or careless or not respectful of other people's times. That's the ironic thing, is when you focus on your own time, you can easily appear that
You don't care.
you don't care about other people's times.
Right.
Because they're spending time trying to communicate with you and you're being dismissive of it.
Yeah. So the one thing that I've done recently, right, is I have a list of non-negotiables. Absolute non-negotiables. Going to the gym every day is a non-negotiable.
Yes.
Following my diet every day is non-negotiable.
Yes.
Answering the call when the fire department calls is a non-negotiable.
Two of the three I can relate to, but all three I get completely. Yep.
And then everything else really can be moved.
Mm-hmm.
I can make some movements, but if right now the tones go off, we're going to push pause and we'll have to pick this up later.
Which we've done before.
We've done that before.
Luckily, it was before we started recording, but I think one time we were
in the truck,
literally
with me,
10 seconds from recording, and we were in your truck, and tones dropped, and we went on a call.
Yeah.
And I was along for a fun joyride. So it happens.
Yeah, so, but the non-negotiable thing, and I think once you establish what your non-negotiables are, if you're reasonable, like, you have to be reasonable with it, right?
My first thought, I have to interrupt you because that is so, you called me out on a stupid answer that I was going to provide anyway, because my immediate thought when you said that was, wow, Justin, that's a really good idea. But what if everything in my life is a non-negotiable?
Right.
I can't have it that way.
No.
I have to pick and choose.
Yeah, it's like
what. Yeah, for
cake
sure.
Cake and eat it too. You can't.
I immediately thought, well, everything's non-negotiable for me. It's well, you can't do that.
Yeah,
you can't do it that way.
That's not true.
That's how I dug myself in this time hole to begin with. And you're right. I the minute you said that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the minute you said that, I was like, oh man, he just kind of shot down my airplane before it even got off the ground.
So no, but once I made non-negotiables and put them into my plan, and I'm very audible about it. I think I've talked about in here about non-negotiable. Some things are just non-negotiable. Period. And it's the three, and that's it. Everything else, I get butthurt sometimes if I don't make one or two things happen. It sucks, but it is what it is, right? As long as you do that, as long as you follow through with your set non-negotiables, whatever that be, and in my opinion, I think they need to be the most selfish things, right?
Yeah.
Because to me personally, this whole success thing is predicated on selfishness.
Absolutely.
Focused selfishness.
And appropriate doses of selfishness.
Exactly. I have to be selfish today, right now, because I could be at home sleeping with my family, but I needed to record this podcast today. This is the time that we had to have set aside.
Yeah.
Period.
Your schedule was completely packed. My schedule was completely packed. I don't think that either of us wanted to get up at 3:30 in the morning.
Right.
On a weekend, but that's what had to be done, so that's what was done.
Yeah.
It was this is a non-negotiable for us. Luckily for us, this is not a daily thing. This is a once weekly thing, but you and I, come hell or high water,
are going to do
we were going to do this. I mean, you were in the hospital hours from having your firstborn, and we're recording.
Yep.
So it's a non-negotiable. It's going to happen.
Yep.
And I think that part of it, as aforementioned, is being upfront with people and being communicative with people. And you just tell them, hey, these are values that I have. And I'm kind of one of those people, too, where I always look at it from another person's perspective. And one of the things that maybe I can even use that to my strength and say to people, hey, if I'm training you, you require 100% you deserve 100% of my focus. So if I'm training this other person, they deserve 100% of my focus.
Yeah.
One of my things is, and I tell people this all the time, I had this conversation with an old high school friend who I hadn't talked to in some time. The person said to me, you're always in such a good mood and energetic, which is not the case.
Right.
I'm not always in a good mood, trust me. But the energy part I explained to her that this is necessity.
Mm-hmm.
I have too many people that rely on me to be high energy all the time. When I get to the gym, my training partner is getting ready for a show. He has to rely, I have to be ready for him and bring energy. It's 5 o'clock in the morning and I'm tired right now. He's tired right now, but I'm going to come in there hooting and hollering and screaming, ready to move some weight and
Right.
get him better and get myself better. Afterwards, there will be times where I train clients before school starts after I lift for myself. That person, likewise, up early, probably tired, hasn't had a lot of sleep, but they are requiring me to be high energy. When I come over to the school, these kids don't want to be in school, a lot of them, for 7 hours at a time, 8 hours at a time, whatever. So they require me to be very engaging. I have to be passionate about what I do. I have to interact with them. I have to be animated. Like, I have to be funny to get them engaged in the lesson. So I have to be high energy there. Afterwards, when I go to practice, our wrestlers are getting ready for the state tournament here in a couple weeks. Like, they've worked their whole lives for this. So when we do some of our strength programming, when we're in the weight room, they're tired. They're dieting. It's been a 5-month, very, very long season. Like, the last thing they want to do is lift after they've been dieting for months and months and months, and they just had a 2-hour practice in a 90-degree wrestling room. I have to bring the energy for them. Afterwards, I go to the gym with my client. So it's the same repetitive thing. Every person that I interact with on a daily basis deserves that high energy. And a lot of them are paying for it, in the form of clients and stuff like that. So I told her, I said, this is almost, I don't want to say it's fake, but I am forced to maintain this. I have to have a high level of energy because people will say, man, like, you're revved up. You're just as revved up at 5 in the morning as you are at 10 o'clock at night. And I say, because I have no option, because people are relying on me to do that. I don't know how I got off on this tangent, but I feel like I constantly have to have that high energy. And so I think that what I need to do is I need to take that high energy and continue it during that buffer time. Like, just tell people, hey, I am in war mode right now. I am in combat mode. I have to go from one client to the next. Don't have time, to bullcrap with you. I'll talk with you later. I apologize, but I got to stay locked in right now.
Yeah, I can remember when I first met you, we had a similar conversation, honestly, to that. Was because I didn't know all this. I was still really, really new at this stuff. I didn't know, like, how serious this was.
Mm-hmm.
So you were working with somebody, and I thought you were just, like, training with them, like we do.
Yeah, like, working out with them, not working out.
And I come over and was like, hey, man, what's going on? And you didn't really answer. And I was like, okay, I see where I stand. And then I realized, and then it dawned on me. I was like, wait a minute. Duh. He's working. Like, he's working. So I always just waited till everybody was over by the bar.
Yeah.
That's the BS zone. That's where we can kind of get down and talk, right? And that's how I gauge it. So what's Charlie doing? Is he walking around with his clipboard, or is he barefoot farting on a treadmill?
Yeah,
exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, so I mean, and then we'll figure that out. So, like, and I think once you establish your habits, people pick up on social cues.
Yeah,
for the most part.
Yep.
For the most part. Now, new people, like, you're gonna encounter where somebody doesn't know, and somebody says, "Hey, that's Charlie over there. If you want to talk to him, that's the guy to talk to." Some new guy might come walking over while you're training. That, I think, is where you need to, in my opinion, have that buffer. Right?
And you know what's interestingly enough, I've had that exact scenario happen, and that's when I've pulled out the "I need to stay in combat mode" card that we talked about, and it's got me a lot of respect because I'll have people, new clients, who come into the gym, greet the owner at the front desk and say, hey, I want to sign my daughter up for training with Charlie. Like, we see his stuff on social media. She plays this sport and that sport. And the owner will say, okay, well, he's here right now. Let me go get him. So if I'm in the middle of training someone, say, hey, there's someone here that wants to speak with you. At that point, I'll usually kind of give a little bit of a break to the athlete and say, hey, grab a drink real quick. Go through this, and this mobility drill. I'll be right back.
Right.
And then I go and then when I meet these people, I'll always say, hey, sorry to cut you short, but right now I got a client, real important, got to get back to my training session. And I've had actually people tell me later on down the road that was part of what drew them to me, is they said, I came in to meet you and you took your training really, really seriously. Almost like if you did this for that person, you would probably do this for me as well.
Yeah, so what are you going to do for my child?
I appreciated how focused you were and how attentive to your job you were, and that stuff. So it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's earned me respect because it's not that big of a thing, but it has painted a little bit of a clearer picture of how I'm trying to establish myself as a trainer.
Right.
Without me really doing much of anything other than saying, hey, got to get back to work.
I mean, essentially, it's accountability.
Yes.
It's your own personal accountability to your craft. This is how I'm going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
And then once you establish that as a ground zero, this is the beginning, right? I am going to do this. Whenever I'm working out with your kid or you, if I'm training your child or you in particular, I'm going to give you, this is what you can expect. That's like establishing that routine.
Mm-hmm.
And once everybody sees a routine, they stay out of the way. It's not even that they respect the routine so much as they respect you because of your routine.
And I always I run the risk of coming across as like a calloused meathead. Like, I don't want people to think
right.
I'm some barbarian who acts like I'm unapproachable in the gym, because that's one thing I think that people take the gym far too seriously.
Right.
And I don't mean training wise, because I will train absolutely as hard as anybody.
Yeah,
but
no doubt.
I feel like the anger and the rage doesn't necessarily need to be there for people to do that.
I agree.
Like, you can be laid back and having a great time while still flipping the switch on and getting your work done.
Right. Yeah, and that's something I learned from you, actually, was how to flip the switch.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm big on flipping the switch now, because I try to be super laid back, hoot and holler, and bang on the wall when somebody's struggling or grinding a rep out, just to get them hyped up. But when it's my turn, I'm the one that's under the weight, or I'm the one that's standing over the almost 500 pounds to deadlift. I flip the switch.
Yeah.
It's time. Get your form right. Execute. Period.
Mm-hmm.
There's that 1 minute for each set. That's my time.
Speaking of flipping the switch, I feel like that's probably a good change of pace moment for us. We talked about doing 20 minutes before the commercial break, 20 minutes after. We're just about 20 before, it's 22 after, and that's going to adhere very nicely to our time schedules today, because we kind of mapped it out as far as time goes, because I got somewhere to be at 6 a.m., you have somewhere to be at 6 a.m., so it's going to work out really well. One thing I wanted to mention before we close up shop here, and usually you're the one that does a really good job of this, of things that you want to bring attention to or sparking awareness. Like, you're big on mental health.
Yes.
I'm big on, suicide prevention, big on a lot of the military things, in bringing to light some larger issues. I wanted to take the opportunity to do that. Shannon Knorr,
yes.
Of Beast Mode Baking, professional athlete. We've had her on the show. We've actually done multiple episodes with her, and we have had numerous requests from numerous people I don't even know asking when we're going to get her back on. So we're absolutely going to do that. That's going to be a non-negotiable. So Shannon, or anybody out there who wants to listen to Shannon, we're going to have her back on. She posted something, and part of her story is that she overcame an eating disorder, and it is actually Eating Disorder Awareness Week.
Yes.
So I thought that was something that we could bring a little bit of publicity to, so to speak, and a little bit of awareness for. Shannon did a wonderful job of going into detail about the stuff that she went through, because, I was familiar with eating disorders, but I'd never actually spoken to someone that was open about it. I'm sure that you talk to people regularly throughout your life that go through a lot of stuff you don't realize they go through, whether it's a mental health issue or whatever.
Right.
So it was really cool for me and eye-opening for me to get the opportunity when we spoke with her to kind of ask her questions about something that I was so novice on.
Right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link her episodes in my bio on Instagram. So most people listen to the show follow me on Instagram. So I'm going to make sure that I link the episodes to Shannon's interviews, so that way we can help raise awareness for National Eating Disorder Week.
100% agree. Yeah, Shannon's story. I told her this the other day. She posted that post that you're referencing, and I messaged her directly, and I said, you should be very proud of this, because it's not easy. I know I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum that she was, but I know how hard it is to paint yourself in that light. So you should be. I told her. I said, I'm paraphrasing, but along the lines of, you should be proud of this, because you're an incredible person that is helping a lot of people that you don't even know.
There's an oddly similar thread there between you and her, even though you're coming from opposite ends, where you always have been very vocal about when you're at your heaviest, over 500 pounds, your idea was to go to the complete opposite.
Yes.
I am the epitome of unhealthy, and I want to get to the pinnacle of healthy.
Yes.
Like, I want to be an endurance athlete. I want to be strong. I want to be lean. I want to be the exact opposite of where I'm at. Essentially, she did the same thing mentally, where she was at a position where she didn't feel comfortable in her skin, to the point where she was actually hospitalized and had to overcome that. Where now she is in a recreational profession as a professional athlete, where she's literally wearing a bikini on stage and showing off her body.
Yeah.
So for her mentally, that has been the complete opposite. And I know that her and I have had discussions before, and you can kind of get a taste of it from what she posts, where she's had to be okay with being less than her best at times, visually speaking. So, like, one of the things that bodybuilders and physique competitors run into is when they diet, they look amazing. When you come off of the diet, compared to what you would consider, quote, a normal person, you still look amazing, but you're not as good as you were previously, because you can't maintain that shredded level, stage lean, hormonally, and for your health, it would be impossible to maintain.
Right.
So, like, I know that Shannon has had to cope with having an opportunity, or having situations or times where she doesn't look like that.
Right.
And she's okay with that.
Yeah.
Some people need to put on a little bit of body fat to put themselves in a good hormonal and health environment and performance environment to be able to progress.
Right.
So sometimes, not that I'm saying you got to get fat to get better, but sometimes you need to add a little bit of body fat to let your body progress and grow the way it needs to.
That's why they call it bulking.
There you go. So I just wanted to raise awareness. And again,
I agree.
Like I've said, I will put the links to Shannon's shows in my bio on Instagram if you guys want to check those out, because they were really cool interviews, and we'll definitely do with her. I felt like we did her a disservice, because even though we had her on twice, that's not enough.
No.
Because there was so much to talk about, where with her, you could have done multiple episodes on one little thing that she does, because she does so much.
Yeah, I've actually been talking to Shannon lately, and I'm really excited when we do get her back on for what we're thinking about talking about. It's going to be good.
Cool.
Not going to tell anybody, but
well, and for what it's worth to the listeners, I don't even know.
Oh yeah.
So that would be very, very exciting. So, well, Justin, that wraps it up. Do you have anything else you'd like to add before we close up for the day?
No, just keep it up. Stick to your non-negotiables.
Yep. Find out what they are, and then once you establish them, make sure you stick to them.
Yep.
So with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. This has been episode 67. We appreciate you guys as always, and we look forward to talking with you next week.
Unbreakable, unstoppable, I'm pushed to the edge and take it all. I'm born